My name is Kev Lombard, and I am a cameraman, a man with a camera. I tell stories with images. My wife, Judith Paixão, is a jewelry designer. Our home is our sailboat, Viagem. In the Portuguese language, Viagem means journey.
My name is Judith Paixão. I work with elements from the sea and particularly sea glass.
We are sailing to Bermuda to be artists in residence for the Masterworks Museum. Judith will be creating jewelry from sea glass, and I will be documenting the process.
Since I was very young, I've been drawn to the water. My mother was an art teacher, and we always made our gifts, our cards. My medium from the very first days was the sea.
The sea is a powerful force, and people look to it for many things. For us, we seek understanding, harmony. We seek inspiration.
When I started sailing, it was like living in a worldwide art studio. Brazil, the waters of the Caribbean, Mexico. And then Kev and I came to Bermuda.
We are serious beachcombers, and sea glass has a special place in our hearts. We identify with the journey the glass has taken.
The sea glass in Bermuda is an absolute treasure.
Steve McPhee is a native Bermudian and has become an expert on the glass, bottles, and pottery that end up in the waters surrounding the island of Bermuda.
My name's Stephen McPhee, and been bottle diving since about 1985 when I first started diving. And because we didn't go offshore, we didn't have boats back then, we would just go from land, and immediately I started finding bottles, just swimming over the bottom, and started realizing that they were fun to pick up and look at and realize that they're old, and that's how I started collecting them. Most of the bottles that I find are within throwing distance from shore, and I go along the coastline, say along Harbor Road or Middle Road, usually in only about 15 to 20 feet of water. I go in front of old houses that I know have been there for a couple hundred years. I'll see it from maybe 5-6 feet away, and my eye is immediately drawn to it, and I go over and I can almost tell what it is before I start fanning the sand away and uncovering it. This is the first type of bottle that was manufactured in England right at the beginning of what is considered the modern bottle making era. And the history of Bermuda, since she was settled in 1609, and what's called the modern history of glass making coincide together. This is the neck of a shaft and globe bottle, which is a bottle from approximately 1650. This is another fragment. It would be next on the evolution of bottles, put it that way. The shaft and globe went from that to the onion bottle, which is also kind of shaped like this. This would be from probably the early 1700s. It's just amazing to find it. I found lots of broken pieces like this. A little bit later, in the 1780s, the bottles would start to get a slightly different shape, more cylindrical. The glass was thicker. This is a pretty heavy bottle, pretty substantial. So their methods of making bottles was getting better. These are all free-blown bottles. They were just made by the glass maker without any molds or anything like that. The thrill of finding something that's old, very old, and intact, and knowing people have been living in Bermuda for, say, 400 years now, and someone from Bermuda, past settler, ancestor, or just an early resident of Bermuda, has used that bottle and then thrown it overboard. And finding that, uncovering it, that may have been buried, or digging down a foot in the sand and pulling up a nice intact bottle is just an incredible moment. Most of these panel-shaped bottles would be, I guess, some type of medicine in them. And, you know, they're all different shades of aqua, different sizes. This is a poison bottle, and you can tell it's a poison bottle because of the color, first of all. A lot of emerald was used, emerald green, for poison. The color would immediately tell you that, okay, this is something you don't want to take by mistake, ingest. The blue glass, sea glass that you may find may have come from a bottle that was shaped like this, or from a castor oil bottle, which looked like that. Along with bottles and glass that you find in the water, you also find a lot of pottery and plates, you know, broken teapots. And I think I was down underwater one day and looking at admiring all the pottery I see poking out of the sand. And that's when it occurred to me, how can I recreate these? And I thought, I'll just repeat what I see right here and recreate these scenes. And I figured out a way of doing it. So I started making those pieces, and they're called Scenes from the Seafloor. And basically, my idea was just to recreate what I see and hopefully put in it and make it look as natural as possible. And maybe someone looking at it would maybe feel, hey, that's kind of cool, you know. Just below this water, you can go down and maybe that's what it will look like. You'll see pieces of broken pottery just poking out of the sand. And, you know, the whole history and everything and the discovery, it all just comes together at once. And to me, it's a nice feeling.
3 generations of native Bermudians. Kelly Thompson and her mother Rose Claire and her daughter Maya started a little business several years ago because they just love the sea and they love sea glass. They're real artists. Kelly sets sea glass in silver. And for all of the places that I've been and seen people doing things with sea glass, I just think Kelly does a beautiful job with the silver. We've gone out to the beach together. I happened to be there when Kelly found an extraordinary piece of purple glass, and you know it's exciting when you're just a devoted beachcomber and you find something that takes your breath away.
It was like a moment of elation, like, oh my God, what is this? I mean, this is a real treasure. I've never seen this before. I wonder, you know, where it comes from. What is it? First, I wasn't quite sure if it was purple, if it was black, or if it was dark green, but when we held it up to the light, deep, great purple. Bermuda sea glass. It's normally thicker than glass I've seen from other places, as well as it has that salt water pothole. Tiny, very minute potholes in the glass. But you can tell that it's weathered sea glass. It's not fantasy glass, and it hasn't been tumbled by, you know, a manufacturing process. It's natural sea glass.
This mermaid, that's going to be for Rainier.
Yeah.
This is right around from one of the first dumps, if not the first dump, in Bermuda. And you kind of wonder, now what was that?
My name is Mike Green, and I sailed to Bermuda from the British Virgin Islands. Once we landed, met Judith. She introduced us to Bermuda sea glass. You find something that takes your breath away, and then 5 minutes later you find something that made that other thing seem like, insignificant. It's just like bits of history and bits of, like a window into someone else's life. I mean, it makes me wonder, it makes me question, which I think is a good thing. And so I think it's good for us to, every once in a while, take a moment and say, you know what, this is worth thinking about.
I don't really know what the history of the dump sites, but all I can imagine is that people would drop off their old bottles, or someone would go and collect them, and to dispose of them, they were crushed and then taken out to these dump sites. And all the pieces that you find, they're all about the same size, like 1 inch or 1.5 inch.
From the very start, when I became a jewelry designer, I realized that it really wasn't about my designs. My art, I believe, is to help bring other people's vision to life. So I started holding what I call salons de bijouterie, jewelry salons, jewelry design salons. And even though people know that they're coming to a salon, they don't really get it until they walk in the door. And oftentimes people, the first thing they say is, I don't have a creative bone in my body. I couldn't possibly put something together. But it's not about putting it together. It's about what are you drawn to? What really speaks to you? So women and men come into the studio or into the salon, and they have no idea what they're about to do. So what I always say is, choose a color that you particularly love, and then start picking bits and pieces. And so what happens is it's kind of a riot of activity. People put white towels down on the floor and empty out the purple sea glass jar, or somebody else is emptying out the sea foam jar, and they start choosing little bits, and the combinations that people come up with are unbelievable. For me, the greatest gift then is when I finish the piece and they walk out and say, I made this, I designed this. I've organized my studio by color, and they're all colors from the sea, and I can see them around the studio. They fan out. By the time I've started to work on the piece, I've spent perhaps sometimes a day or a lot of thought picking and choosing different stones that will complement and offset and really support the sea glass. So when I sit down at my bench, I have an artist's palette before me, and everything is organized in little trays. So when I start weaving together or putting together somebody's design, I'm drawing from my thoughts of what it was like when I was out on the water. And it's like a dance. I just kind of get into my zone and start creating. There's no question but that being here in Bermuda has changed me as an artist. I'm seeing things in ways that I hadn't seen them before. I'm reacting to the pieces that I find in ways that I hadn't before. I've found things that I never ever thought were possible. I think Kev is actually a better finder than I am, but this has been a life-changing experience. There's no question about it. The colors here are truly inspirational, and they're found everywhere. The sky, the water, the greenery, the fish, the flowers, everything. It just is the most inspirational place I've ever been as an artist, and it has taken me to a new level. I don't know that it would be possible to replicate Bermuda, but I guess that's the sense of discovery, of moving forward.
The bottles and sea glass of Bermuda are like a metaphor for life. We start out whole and beautiful with a purpose, but we are delicate and fragile. Somewhere along the line, we might become broken and discarded. Then life has a way of throwing us into a new journey, tumbling us into tides, and over time polishing us until we become like precious jewels.